Good morning. My name is Hope.
And my name is Jocelyn. I grew up loving Curious George. I owned a collection of the first 20 or so books that I constantly reread and cherished. I mean, George was able to go on countless adventures with the man in the yellow hat. He escaped prison and went on balloon rides and all types of mischievous missions. I mean, what little kid wouldn't envy that lucky monkey? In the very beginning of the book, the man in the yellow hat takes George into his care, traveling with him from the jungle to the big city. George promises the man in the yellow hat he'll be good, but he's just a little monkey, and they often forget their promises. In this exciting new city, George is entranced. There's big city lights, Ferris wheels, tall towers, so many people, and so many more temptations he can't help but give into.
George is constantly forgetting his promises to behave, very much like how many of us forget. But no matter how much trouble George gets in, the man in the yellow hat always forgives. He didn't care how big of a mistake Curious George made, he constantly cared for George. This shows that the man in the yellow hat represents Jesus and his persistent love and forgiveness for us.
I, like Curious George and many other kids, never stopped asking questions. My mom says I was very inquisitive, which the dictionary defines as to be curious, eager for knowledge, and to enjoy asking questions to learn more about things. As a toddler, my mom remembers me looking at maps and asking where everyone lived and why it took so long to get there. As a tiny ballerina, I wanted to know everything about dance and how each dance worked and how and why. She taught me a lot, so if you want me to show you any pro dance moves, just find me after the service. I think this curiosity is shown in my life today, even as a teenager. I love to read mystery books, problem solve every chance I get, and study anything I find interesting. Now, I haven't been sent to prison or escaped prison or stolen all of the balloons for sale and been accidentally lifted above the whole city, but Curious George has, and he and I aren't so different.
I love music, so I wanted to share how the theme song, Upside Down, for Curious George relates to me. This song highlights optimism and positivity, encouraging its listeners to embrace the impossible. One of the lyrics that I really like from this song would be, "Who says I can't do everything? Well, I can try." I really like this lyric because it reminds me that nothing is impossible as long as you try, and to not let anyone tell you otherwise. In life, it can be really easy to let other people's words get to you and end up not getting that soda because they said it was unhealthy, or even though you really wanted it, or not chasing your dreams because no one has ever done it before. George knew nothing is impossible, and it may lead to you making a mistake, but we will always find our way back to Jesus, and Jesus will always forgive.
Curious George, as his name suggests, was extremely eager to explore. Many adults didn't like this trait in him, viewing his curiosity as sin. However, the man in the yellow hat forgave George every time he caused problems because he knew George was simply curious. George got into plenty of trouble, but despite every encounter with police and lifeguards and angry zookeepers, the man in the yellow hat was there to rescue George. Jesus is the same. He views us as curious little kids who are eager to learn and know more. Many times this gets us into trouble. We've cut DIY bangs with the kitchen scissors, climbed on top of shelves in search of Christmas presents, and stuck our fingers into light sockets. However, Jesus wants us to know more. He supports us seeking knowledge as long as we do it through God. It is natural to be curious, to want to understand more, but it is important to remember only God knows it all. Of course, he will teach us these things through experience. Now we have discovered bangs aren't so fun to grow out, the stitched chin wasn't worth the spoiled surprise, and being shocked really hurts. Now we have learned that curiosity isn't bad, but God wants us to seek the knowledge through him. You might not be able to tell an impatient 5-year-old to wait until Christmas morning for the new race car or Barbie dream house, but before you make decisions based on your curiosity, you can stop and ask God before you decide to find out for yourself.
Everyone has been a kid at some point, and we've all been in George's footsteps. As Paul says, "Let no one despise your youth, but set the believers as an example in speech and conduct, in love, faith, and purity." As we, followers of Christ, do not underestimate the power of our youth, instead embrace the impossible.
Good morning. My name is Cydia, and I am a senior at CDO High School. I'm excited to speak with you today about being an example. Have you ever read The Rainbow Fish? It's a story of a beautiful fish who stood out because of his shimmery, shiny scales. At first, his beauty made him feel alone. It wasn't until he began to share what made him special that he found a real connection and joy. His uniqueness wasn't meant to set him apart, it was meant to bless others. 2 summers ago, when the spot opened up to go to SSP, I was invited to go. I wasn't sure what to expect. I had started making some friends in the youth group, but it was still all kind of new to me. I had never been on an airplane before, and with some last-minute changes, our whole group had to fly to our site. The rainbow fish was pretty hesitant to hand out his beautiful scales, and I was pretty hesitant to go all the way to Northern California, and I have never been out of state without my family. But like the rainbow fish decided to go sharing his scales, I decided to go to SSP. I'm so glad I did. My group built a shed, and I also made a 3-legged friend named Tippy, who always enjoyed our presence. This story reminds me of what Paul tells Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 11 through 16. Paul encourages Timothy to not let anyone look down on him because of his youth, but instead to be an example in speech, behavior, love, faith, and purity. He tells Timothy to not neglect his gift, but to be diligent and keep growing. That is something we all need to keep in mind no matter what age we are. The last few years in high school, I have been a part of Skills USA Club, where I go to competitions and other events to document my peers. You wouldn't believe the amazing things I've seen all my friends do. They are young, they are leaders and examples. I liked SSP so much. I went back again this year. This summer, we had a lot of neat community projects. In memory of the original Friendship Park, which was destroyed in order to place down the border, my team helped create what used to be the U.S. side of Friendship Park. This summer, the theme was building bridges. The spiritual components talked a lot about how we can build bridges to the world around us, not like my friends in Skills USA, but more spiritual. Since starting to come here to St. Mark's, I have built so many bridges, just like my friends in youth group, Mrs. Rachel, and all the volunteers that help the youth. Just like the rainbow fish, you are made to stand out, not for your own glory, but to serve and inspire others. God has placed gifts in you that you are meant to shine. Don't hide them.